good evening. Or maybe it's morning for you. Either way, you're here now. And for the next half an hour or so, the world outside can wait. Tonight, we're stepping into the oldest stories the Greeks ever told. Not of kings or battles, but of the ages of man. 5 great chapters in the life of the world, each shaped by the gods themselves. The Golden Age, when mortals and immortals lived side by side in peace. The Silver Age, slower and softer, yet fading. The Bronze Age, a time of warriors and restless ambition. The Age of Heroes, when legends walked the earth. And the Iron Age, our own time, harder, colder, and closer to the end. This is the story of humanity under the watchful eyes, and sometimes the cruel hands of the gods. In these ages, your life could be blessed beyond imagining, or ended at a god's passing whim. Before we begin, I'd love to know, where are you watching from right now? And what time is it where you are? Leave a comment below. If you enjoy these quiet journeys through the past, where we take our time, breathe in the details, and walk slowly through the hours of a day. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe so you can find your way back here again. So settle in. You can close your eyes if you like, or watch the images drift past. Let my voice take you to a time before history, to a morning in the Golden Age, when the first light touched a perfect world. You wake before the idea of morning needs a word. Light is already everywhere. Not the sharp kind that makes you blink, but a warm brightness that seems to rise from the ground as much as from the sky. Dew gathers on the grasses in pearls, and when you sit up beneath the olive tree, the earth meets your back the way a good blanket would. Cool where you're warm, warm where you're cool. No one calls you, no one ever needs to. Here, time is not a thin line you're pulled along. It is a wide lake you float upon. You stand because your body is ready to stand, because the air smells like thyme and figs and clean water coming down from hidden stones. You pad barefoot along a path that is not really a path, only a soft suggestion where clover has been pressed by many unhurried feet. The olives overhead show their silver undersides to the breeze, a faint flashing as the leaves turn and turn. Bees pass you the way old friends do, not as interruption, but as proof that the morning has begun its gentle rhythm. A spring curls from the hillside the way hair curls from a child's brow. You cup water, cold enough to wake the tongue, soft enough to disappear without leaving edges. On the far side of the spring, someone hums. It might be a friend. It might be a god. Here the difference is less than a breath. You carry fruit because it would be rude to arrive with empty hands. The grove opens into a clearing where others are already gathered. Reeds and baskets arranged in a crescent around the shade. Laughter moves through the leaves like light. A child sleeps on a blanket of woven grasses, palm open, catching bits of sun, as if the day itself had spilled there. There is no counting. A platter is simply there, filled with almonds and discs of soft cheese. Another appears, flat cakes brushed with honey so lightly they shine. You break what you want and pass what remains. The word hunger still exists, but mostly as a story older people tell the very young to explain why thanks is a beautiful sound. A figure leans against the trunk of a laurel, wrists crossed, one sandal loose at the heel. They are not trying to be noticed, and for that reason they are. The shade favors their face. The air holds just a little brighter around them. Cronus sits sometimes, or one of his daughters, or no one at all, except the feeling that you are seen with a softness that changes everything and nothing at once. By the river, the light is different. sliced into long, slow bands by branches that lean over the current, like friends who share secrets only when asked. You wade in up to your knees. A fish moves past quick as a thought, then slows as if it, too, remembers the rule of this age. Nothing is rushed, not even motion. When the sun grows a little taller, there is music, not all at once. First the thin sound of a single flute testing whether the day will accept a melody. Then a hand drum, not beaten so much as encouraged. Then voices. You do not need words to sing here. Silence that listens is enough. Someone lifts a small bowl and tilts it toward the ground, the first drop for the hearth that is everywhere. You have not met Hestia yet, not really, but the practice is already part of your hands, a little first, for the heart of things, the rest for each other. The bowl passes. When it reaches you, you tip it just a fraction, and the water darkens a circle of soil. There are games. The young race to the river and back without a shout of start or finish. The old toss rings made of braided grass toward a stick set in the ground. The ring you throw arcs too high, then corrects itself, lands as if the air enjoys seeing things arrive in the right place. At mid-morning, you walk with two friends to the low hills, where sheep graze without counting, and shepherds lean their shoulders into the wind, because leaning feels good. The thyme here is thick. When you brush it with your calf, it lets go of its scent, like a secret you are meant to know. Stories are told sideways. Someone mentions a time when the river climbed its own banks not to flood, but to greet a traveler. Someone describes an evening when the stars came earlier than they should have, as if they were eager for company. Truth is not a line everyone must stand behind. It is a circle where everyone can sit down. Down in the grove, someone has arranged a table from nothing more than flat stones and quiet agreement. Bowls show up the way laughter does, because one person started and the rest remembered how. There is a jug of wine that tastes like a long conversation, with no disapproval in it, and water cold enough to praise with both hands. If a god is here, they are the one who refills your cup before you ask. If no god is here, the person who refills your cup has borrowed that grace for a moment. You do not need to bow. You look up and meet their eyes, and feel something like weather pass between you. Pleasant, warming. Afternoon does not lean hard on your shoulders. It chooses to be a string of small tasks that are really pleasures. A child is taught how to weave rushes into a circle that holds if you don't demand it. You learn how to cut a fig so its inside opens like a flower. If talk turns solemn, it is not to warn. It is to remember, in a way that feels like being told who you are by someone who sees you best. There is a story of the first sleep, and how it was not a surrender, but a gift. There is a story of the first laughter, and how it started before there were jokes, like a river that somehow makes music because it loves its stones. The sea is close. You can smell it even when you cannot see it. A salt that is not sharp, a promise of cool that is not cold. When you walk toward it, the path slowly turns from grass to sand without deciding where. Gulls remark on your arrival, and then remember you were always going to come. The water is as gentle with your ankles as the morning was with your eyes. Waves attend, not to show their strength, but to teach you how to breathe. Each one writes a line at your feet and pulls it away again, so the story can be told differently next time without anyone being wrong. Evening begins the way a good song repeats itself. The light chooses gold again, then softer gold, then the color of a ripe fig skin, then something you cannot name except by saying, stay. A fire is coaxed, not because warmth is needed, but because flame is a face everyone loves to watch. Bowls pass again. Bread that never needed struggle. Oil that remembers sunlight. Cheese that is the right kind of patient. Sweetness that does not rush to be noticed. You eat politely and entirely. Music returns unasked, and then is asked to stay. A reed pipe chooses 3 notes and finds 1,000 ways to be grateful for them. Some people dance in the way trees dance, rooted but swaying. Some do not move at all and manage to move the most. When the first star appears, it is not an announcement. It is a friend arriving early to help set the table for night. If the gods are present, they are not above you now. They are beside you, or across from you, or wearing your face when you smile, without remembering why. You lie down where you began, beneath the olive tree. The leaves whisper above you, their shapes now half shadow in the late light. The last thing you notice before your eyes close is the taste of honey lingering faintly on your tongue. When you open your eyes, the air is different. The light is paler, edged with a coolness that makes you draw your arms closer. The tree above you is the same, yet its leaves hang heavier, their green touched with something dimmer. In the distance, voices still gather, but fewer now, and softer, as if speaking under the weight of a quieter sun. The Silver Age has begun, not with a storm, but with the steady, undeniable drift of a perfect world, giving way to something more fragile. You rise, and the earth feels less like a warm blanket and more like cool stone beneath your feet. The path is still there, though the clover is sparser, patches of bare earth showing between the leaves. Bees still work the flowers, but their sound is a slow, deliberate murmur. You walk toward the clearing, but the laughter is thinner now, stretched between longer silences. A child tugs at a fig too soon, and the fruit splits without sweetness. No one scolds, but the disappointment hangs longer than the sound itself. A meal is shared, but bowls empty sooner, and when they do, no more appear. You notice the first careful glance at a platter's bottom before it is passed along. Hunger is not here, not yet, but the thought of hunger is. The old stories told to children are no longer just stories. By the spring, water still curls from the stone, but slower. You cup it and drink. The taste is the same, but the chill lingers too long on your teeth. The one who hums across the basin looks up this time. Their eyes are kind but tired. For the first time, you wonder if it is a god, or only someone hoping one might still pass this way. Cronus is said to linger less now. Some whisper that he spends more time in sleep, dreaming golden days that will not return. The air no longer brightens when a figure leans against the laurel. Instead, you look and wonder, is it a god, or simply the shadow of memory dressed in the shape of one? Work begins to appear. Not toil, not yet, but more than play. Clay resists shaping, cracking in hands too careless. The jug you try to form splits near the rim, and though you press it back, the line remains. A friend mends it with resin, but the seam is visible. Perfection no longer lies waiting in everything you touch. When music comes, it comes slower. The flute hesitates, finding notes that do not hold as easily as before. Voices waver, some slipping away into silence. The hand drum keeps rhythm, but it sounds more like duty than invitation. At the river, fish scatter too quickly, and the water pulls at your ankles with a chill that does not invite you further. Across the bank, reeds still weave into mats, but the strands fray sooner, demanding more patience to hold them together. The ritual of pouring a first drop remains, but when the bowl passes, fewer hands tilt it. Some forget, others remember too late. When you tip your portion, the soil accepts it, but the dark circle fades faster than before. The games continue, but with edges. A race ends in laughter, but also in breathless quarrel about who was first. The ring you throw lands wide, and instead of correcting itself, it lies where it falls. No one blames you, but no one praises the air for helping either. At midday, the sheep graze farther apart, their shepherds walking a little longer to gather them back. The thyme is still fragrant, but it grows in patches now, scattered where it once covered the hills in carpets. Stories are still told, but some are darker. The river that climbed its banks is remembered not to greet a traveller, but to sweep one away. The stars that came early are recalled as omens, not gifts. Truth begins to narrow, to be questioned. The circle tightens. At the table of stones, food appears more slowly. The wine is thinner, the water less cold. You drink anyway, and it is still enough, but not the abundance you remember. If a god is here, they remain apart. The refilled cup is rarer, the borrowed grace more fleeting. You glance up to meet someone's eyes and find them looking away. Afternoon leans heavier. Tasks need more effort. A net breaks sooner after it is mended. A child weaves a rush circle that falls apart in their hands, and the disappointment lingers long after the rushes are tossed aside. Conversations turn to memory, not just stories, but laments. The first sleep is remembered, not as a gift, but as a surrender that must have cost something. The first laughter, once like a river's song, is retold as a sound the world makes only rarely, when it forgets its own weight. The sea is still close. You walk to it, but the sand clings to your feet, heavy and damp. The gulls call with sharper voices. The water is colder, and when you wade, the waves pull harder, tugging you back as if they no longer wish to be shared. Evening does not repeat the day like a song anymore. The fire smokes, and you cough once before it steadies. Bowls pass again, but with fewer offerings. Bread that crumbles too easily, oil bitter at the edge, cheese less patient. You eat anyway. Music is quieter. The reed pipe tries its notes, but loses them quickly. Some dance, but their steps are smaller, the sway less certain. When the first star appears, it is late. You wait, but the sky holds back longer than before. When more stars follow, they are faint, veiled. If the gods are present, they are watching from a distance. You lie down again beneath the olive tree. The cicadas sing slower, their rhythm uncertain. The warmth of the day is gone. The air presses cool against your cheek. You close your eyes knowing this age is different. Not broken, not yet, but slipping. And when you wake again, it will be into another age entirely. The Bronze Age rises like a storm breaking after long silence, and you feel it in the air before you open your eyes. When you wake, the ground is harder beneath your back. The olive tree above you still stands, but the bark feels rougher, darker. Its shade less a comfort and more a mark of division between light and shadow. The voices you hear now are not gentle gatherings, but sharp, carrying across the clearing. Laughter is rarer, cut shorter, its edges clipped by urgency. People move faster, their arms not filled with figs and cheese, but with tools. Bronze glints where there was once only clay or woven reed. At first, it is beautiful. The metal shines like captured fire, shaped into blades, cups, and ornaments that catch the sun and scatter it into 1,000 sparks. But beauty here is no longer soft. It is hard-edged, demanding. Meals are still shared, but bowls empty quickly, and the food is portioned more carefully. The taste of bread lingers with more salt, as if pulled from sweat. Oil is measured, not spilled freely. Wine is stronger, burning the back of the throat, and it is drunk more quickly, with a kind of hunger that is not for food alone. Work is no longer play. The clay cracks easier. The hands that mend it are calloused. Bronze tools strike stone and wood, shaping them with a rhythm that echoes like heartbeat and a hammer. A fence rises where before there was only meadow, a border to hold sheep or to keep neighbors apart. At the river, the water is colder, its current faster. You see fish leaping, silver bodies breaking the surface, and hands reaching not with patience, but with spears. The catch is more certain, but the stillness is gone. The ritual of pouring the first drop remains, but its meaning is shifting. Some still tilt the bowl for the hearth that is everywhere, but others raise it to their lips first, and what is spilled feels more like accident than devotion. Games change too. The race is no longer for delight, but for victory. Arguments rise more quickly over who was first. The ring of braided grass is replaced by a disc of bronze, and it lands with a sound heavier than laughter. At midday, the sheep graze in guarded fields, watched by shepherds with spears at their sides. Hawks wheel overhead, but no one calls them friends anymore. Time still grows on the hills, but in patches farther apart, and you trample more than you keep. Stories turn darker. The river that once greeted travelers is now said to drag them under. The stars no longer hurry for company, but burn as warnings. Even laughter is remembered differently, as something rarer, sharper. Afternoon weighs heavy. Nets are cast wide, but they tear under the weight of greed. A child learns to weave rushes, but the rushes are brittle, breaking in small hands. Disappointment hardens into silence. The sea is close but harsher. Sand grinds under your feet, damp and clinging. The gulls wheel overhead with harsher cries. Waves hit harder, their pull insistent, dragging at your knees as if to test your strength. Evening does not soothe. Fires smoke and spit. Bread is tougher, oil bitter. Cheese holds its patience, but less of it. Wine burns hotter, drunk in gulps. Music changes most of all. The reed pipe is sharper, its notes cutting the air. Drums beat louder, faster, calling not to joy, but to movement. Some dance still, but their steps are quicker, more violent, less sway, and more stamp. When the stars arrive, they are hard points of light, not companions, but distant eyes. The gods, if they are here, are watching with judgment. You lie down again beneath the olive tree, but the cicadas sound harsher now, their rhythm like scraping. The earth presses against you without comfort. You close your eyes, knowing this age is not soft, not forgiving, but forged. And when you wake again, it will be into another world entirely. The heroic age comes not as a dawn or a storm, but as a drumbeat. When you wake beneath the olive tree, the air is sharper, bracing. The shade no longer feels like a cradle. It feels like a vantage point. You rise quickly because this age does not linger. Voices carry with strength now, not quarrel, but command. The clearing is filled not with baskets of figs or bowls of honey, but with shields, spears, armor. Bronze still gleams, but now it is fitted to bodies, strapped to arms, lifted high. The people here are taller in their bearing, their faces carved with certainty. Meals are brief, eaten before the march. Bread is hard, travel ready. Cheese is sharper, wine diluted to last longer. You eat standing, with others, your eyes drawn toward the horizon more than the table. Work is strategy. Spears are honed until their tips split the air with sound. Shields are tested against stones hurled for practice. Fences have grown into walls, watchtowers rising above the meadow. The world here is edged, measured, guarded. At the river, the water still flows, but now it is crossed with boats lashed from timber. Their prows cut into sharp shapes, eyes painted on their sides as if to see ahead. Fish scatter at the churn of oars. Nets are cast not to feed, but to stockpile, to prepare. The ritual of pouring the first drop remains, but it is no longer for the hearth that is everywhere. It is for the gods of war, the patrons of victory. Ares, Athena, names now spoken aloud, no longer whispers. The ground drinks, but the prayer is not for calm. It is for strength. Games are training, wrestling in the dust, racing in armor, hurling javelins farther than before. Victories are counted, defeats sting. Children are praised for their skill, not for their laughter. The ring of braided grass is gone, replaced by the clang of metal on the metal. At midday, sheep still graze, but fewer. Pastures are cleared to make room for drills, for camps. Hawks circle, but their presence is omen now, their dives watched for signs. The time on the hills is trampled beneath boots that march, not wander. Stories are war chants. The river is remembered for drowning enemies, not greeting them. The stars are read for victory, not comfort. Truth is sharpened to a point, like a spear. Heroes are named. Their deeds are sung, their battles retold. Each story a map of glory. Afternoon is practice. Arrows loosed at painted targets. Shields locked into walls of bronze. The sound of wood breaking, of stone splitting, of lungs straining until the breath burns. Tasks are no longer shared play. They are obligations, duties. The sea is restless, filled with sails. Black ships rock against the shore. Crews shouting, their oars lifting and falling in rhythm. The gulls scream overhead, their cries swallowed by the clang of preparation. Waves do not soothe, they challenge, rising higher, pulling harder. Evening burns, fires are fed until they roar, smoke thick and bitter. Bread is tough, oil dark. Meat is roasted on spits, eaten in chunks between boasts. Wine is poured not for calm, but for courage. Music is fierce. Pipes shriek high, drums pound low. Songs are no longer hums of gratitude, but chants of names, of victories, of vengeance. Feet stamp the ground, arms swing. Voices rise like weapons themselves. When the stars appear, they are no longer companions. They are guides, fates, warnings. Some are prayed to, others feared. The gods are not beside you. They are above, demanding. You lie down beneath the olive tree, but rest does not come easily. The ground feels like stone. Cicadas rasp, their rhythm uneven. Your dreams are filled with firelight, with marching feet, with the weight of armor. And when you wake again, it will not be to an age of heroes, but to an age of iron. The Iron Age arrives not with ceremony, but with weight. You wake beneath the olive tree again, but the ground feels harder, the roots pressing into your back. The air is colder, sharper, and the sky overhead is a grey that does not promise change. The clearing is quieter. Where once there was song, where once there was training, now there is only the sound of tools striking earth and metal. Fields stretch wider, but they are harder to work. The soil gives less, and what it gives must be forced out with sweat. Meals are plain and smaller. Bread is coarse, rough in your mouth. Wine is watered thin. Bowls empty and are not refilled. Hunger is no longer only a thought. It is here, seated at the table beside you. Work is toil. Iron is stronger than bronze, but it resists the hand. It bends less, breaks more. The plough carves the ground, but demands more from the one who pushes it. The jug you shape holds, but it is heavy, uneven, and the seam cracks sooner. At the river, the water runs colder and faster. It does not pause for you. Fish are scarce, and nets fray quickly. The mats woven on the far bank are patched again, never new. The ritual of the first drop is not forgotten, but it is hurried. Bowls are tilted quickly, hands already turning back to labor. The earth accepts, but gives no sign in return. Games are fewer. Children chase each other, but their laughter is thinner, interrupted by quarrels. The ring of grass no longer exists. Wrestling ends in bruises that do not fade quickly. Victories are not play, but small claims against the world's indifference. At midday, the sheep graze closer to the village, kept in sight for fear of loss. Hawks are hunted, their dives no longer omens but threats. Time grows sparse, found only in corners where the plough has not reached. Stories are heavy now. The river that once rose to greet or destroy is spoken of as punishment. The stars are warnings of famine, of storms, of wars. Truth is no longer shared freely. It is debated, fought over, doubted. The table of stones remains, but bowls are few, and sometimes none at all. Wine tastes of dust, water of metal. You drink anyway, because you must. The gods are spoken of less, or else cursed. Their names are invoked for survival, not reverence. A cup is not refilled unless taken by hand. Grace is no longer borrowed. It is begged and often denied. Afternoon is labor. Backs bent in fields, hands cracked and bleeding. Nets fail. Clay splits. Walls crumble faster than they can be mended. Nothing holds as it once did. Conversations are complaints. The first sleep is told as the world's first surrender, a mistake. The first laughter is mocked, dismissed as a memory of a time when people were foolish enough to believe the world was kind. The sea is still there, but it is harsh. The sand clings damp, heavy, fouling your steps. The gulls scream like warnings. The waves pull with anger, dragging at your legs, pushing you back. Ships rot at their moorings, their sails in tatters. Evening is dim. The fire smokes, choking the air. Bread crumbles, oil is bitter, meat scarce. You eat less than you need. You do not speak of fullness anymore. Music falters, pipes squeal, drums crack, voices fall out of tune. Some try to dance, but most do not. The night does not welcome song. When the stars appear, they are pale and distant, fewer than before. The sky is not a friend or a guide. It is only far away. The gods, if they remain, are silent. You lie down once more beneath the olive tree. The cicadas rasp weakly, their rhythm broken. The warmth is gone. The air presses cold against your cheek. You close your eyes, not with the peace of the first age, but with the weight of an ending. The golden, the silver, the bronze, the heroic, all have passed. Now iron binds the world, heavy and unyielding. And though you dream, it is no longer of what is, but only of what once was.